All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 105 and we have a few days left now of the football season. I'm recording this on Friday because I ran out of time earlier this week to record, so recording this right before the Cavs game this Friday against the Pelicans. So yeah, we've got, just a couple of days left here till the Super Bowl, and that'll wrap things up. I'm definitely going to get into some of my predictions for the game, and I also have a couple of bets that I am placing on this game that I want to talk about. So we will definitely get to that. First, I want to get into some Cavs stuff, talk about LeBron becoming the all-time leading scorer in NBA history, and then some NFL awards type stuff. The basic NFL awards that were announced, as well as the Hall of Fame class that now includes Joe Thomas. Definitely want to get into that a little. So lots to talk about, which is exciting because I feel like this is the time of year that I talked about where things start to get real dead and you don't really know what to say. So happy to have some interesting things to discuss here. Okay, so starting with the Cavs. I didn't even get to record before the Memphis game last time. I think I recorded, I want to say the night before that game happened, and boy, has it been a different team since then. Like, I feel like when that moment happened in the Memphis game where Donovan just got up and went after Dylan Brooks after he obviously intentionally hit him in the groin, I just felt in that moment like I was in the arena, and I felt like that was a turning point for the team. It was like, okay, we've been told how we're this just group of really nice guys who, get along well, and we're the young, nice group, but like, we're not letting people push us around anymore. We're not letting people mess around with us. And you go after our guy, we go after you. And it felt like that's what happened in that moment. And since then, the Cavs have been on an absolute tear. Like, they haven't had like a hard schedule, but they've been burying these teams, which is something we haven't always seen. Even when they played bad teams earlier on in the season, it felt like sometimes they played to the level of their competition, and they weren't getting up for it. Like, we had the Golden State game where the B team came in and played, and we played to the level of our competition in that game. It did not look like our best effort. So we had plenty of those games. So to see, after obviously Memphis being a very tough matchup and what we were able to do and beat them pretty soundly, every time they tried to punch back, like, we just kept going. And that was with Donovan out, because obviously he had to get thrown out in that game after that. Then we beat the Pacers on the road, 122-103, sound win. Wizards on the road, 114-91, another sound win. And then the Pistons at home, 113-85. The Pistons got to be like the worst team in the NBA. I also went to that game, and they were putting up some of the worst shots I have seen this season. Like, it was kind of embarrassing at certain points, but even in that game, like, we let them back in a little bit. I want to say it got within 2 or 4 at one point, and then we just hit a switch and pulled away, and it was awesome to see. And we were resting Donovan and Darius in that game, so I think that's pretty notable as well. It feels like there's a couple factors that are playing into this. One, Evan Mobley is playing the best we have seen him in his 1.5 years in the NBA, which is not, a very large sample size, but it feels like he's turned up another notch of his decisiveness and his aggression, mostly offensively. Like, he's always had a lot of that defensively, but he was a little bit more hesitant on the offensive side of the ball. Now it's like he has this newfound confidence where he knows what he can do and is just going to go for it. So I think that's been notable. The second thing is Isaac. Isaac has been shooting much better than he was in the first half of this season. Like, it was noticeable, and it was a struggle because it was the one spot in the starting lineup we couldn't quite figure out. And now that he is able to play, so strong on the offensive side and not just be good on the defensive side and then a complete liability on the offensive side, that has been everything. Like, I think our starting lineup has been like plus 20 or something around there since we have had Isaac solidified in the starting role since about some point in January. And it's been really good to see. I'm like so happy for him because look, I was hard on him. Lots of people were hard on him. It was becoming a struggle for a bit there. And the fact that he was able to work hard enough to turn it around and not let it mentally get to him that he wasn't performing. Because look, they're not idiots. Like, they hear what everyone's saying and they know what's going on the court, that how teams are defending them when they're, standing off like 7 feet from Isaac. Like, okay, shoot it, sure. I'm sure that, gets in your head a little bit. Now they're starting to have to defend him a little bit differently, which I think is going to continue to open things up in the post for Evan and for Jarrett as well, because guys don't have to lay off Isaac as much. Now they have to treat him like a legitimate shooter if he continues to keep up at this pace, which would be awesome and would really change things. Like, I think still in the playoffs, you're going to see teams dare Isaac to shoot because, I mean, if you're looking at who you have otherwise, it's Darius and Donovan, and, there's still a clear gap between what they're able to do and what Isaac is able to do. But if Isaac is hitting those, like, that's how you win playoff series. Like, that's going to matter a lot. I think the third thing that this team is doing really well is the bench is finally playing well, and not just like one guy getting 9 points in a night. It'll be a couple guys. Ricky is coming into his own finally, which, look, we had to give him a minute. I feel like people were like, it's been 2 games and Ricky doesn't look like he looked like last year. He was out for a whole year. He had a year-long injury. That's pretty brutal. So I think it's okay that it took him some time, but he's really started to look and show flashes of 2021 Ricky, which is awesome. We have Jetty hitting shots more consistently, which is good because he was going through a bit of a slow streak. And even still, you can get good minutes from Dean. You can get good minutes from Lamar. Like, you have guys that are contributing. Even in that Pistons game, we had Neto playing some really good minutes for that team. I know it was against a horrible matchup, so that has to be taken in. But even to be able to get those guys going is great. Karras is still a little bit up and down, and, that kind of comes with Karras. I feel like he is that type of player. But it's okay when other guys I feel like are playing really well, and then maybe you find a night where Karras has the hot hand and he's rolling. And look, like, it's interesting that all of this is happening right now because we obviously just had the NBA trade deadline where insane things were happening. Kyrie's in Dallas now, Katie's in Phoenix, which is great news for us in the East because the Nets are no longer a threat. So that's pretty exciting because I did not want to have to match up against that team at some point. And I feel like people are mad that the Cavs didn't make a move at the trade deadline, which I understand. Like, I would have maybe liked to see something happen. But I don't think it's the end of the world because I don't think anything that we were going to do was really going to take us to the next level. Like, this is something that gets harder as you're building a team where you have multiple stars and you have less assets. It's hard to make those moves. They don't just come around easily. It's easy to make moves when you have a bunch of role players filling your bench, and you can, be a part of all these different trades or be the third team in these trades. Like, Kobe used to love doing that, where he would get involved, and like the Jared Allen trade was one of those. And it's a little bit harder now to do that. So I'm not super disappointed that they didn't make a move, because if it wasn't going to raise our ceiling, then why do you do it? Like, I think this team really likes Karras, and I think he was the one everyone was talking about as a potential trade piece. But it seems like, from all accounts of what Kobe's been saying, like, the guys love him, the locker room loves him, and look, he can still have a really good night here and there. So it's like, is it worth the risk to trade for someone who maybe doesn't fit in as well with the group? Or, I mean, every trade you make is going to be a guess at the end of the day. Like, you could think, oh, it seems like this guy would fit in well with our guys. Maybe it doesn't work out. Like, it's always a bit of a gamble. So to know that at least Karras does mesh well, and still has, the ability to, I mean, he could go off in a given night. He had that game earlier on in the season against Boston where he put up 41. Like, Karras can still do that. So it's not like he's completely useless. So I'm not that mad about it. Like, I understand why they did what they did. And this will be something that over the next couple of years, The front office is going to have to go in at the right moment when they find the right piece to maybe find another shooting three out there, but it doesn't come up so easily all of the time when you're the type of team we are at this point. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Cavs. I'm feeling really good. We have a pretty easy upcoming schedule. We've got Pelicans tonight. We have 2 home games in a row, Bulls and Spurs, and then 2 tough games after that. We are away in Philly, which is going to be a huge test and will be really interesting for the Eastern Conference standings. And then we are at home against the Nuggets, which is obviously always a tough matchup as well. So interesting things coming up. I think the Cavs could potentially be the 3 seed. Like, the 76ers have a really hard upcoming schedule. So I could see if the Cavs really are able to keep rolling the way they are, they could inch closer and closer and potentially jump up into that 3 seed. I mean, we're getting to mid-February now, so the season is rolling. We're getting close, and this is the time you want to be playing your best basketball. Like, when people were getting mad in January, I'm like, I don't want to be playing our best basketball in January. We did that last year. Like, we played our best basketball in, like, I feel like December, January, and then we fell apart after the All-Star break with injuries. I feel like this is a more ideal situation, is to continue building and building rather than peaking too early. So keeping the hope alive. I'm feeling good about the Cavs right now. All right, so next topic, LeBron. Very happy to talk about LeBron today. So obviously LeBron has now become the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. And it's really funny about this, and this will tell you just how insane of a LeBron fan I am. On my phone, on my Safari tab, for years, the first tab on my Safari is that I have the NBA stats for all-time leading points, assists, rebounds, blocks, steals. Those lists are always on my phone that I've been checking religiously for 3-4 years now, seeing where LeBron is moving up in that all-time scoring list or where he's at for, assists, whatever category. And it's been fun to just watch it inch closer. Like, I would always be doing the math of guessing how many more games he would need to get to the next milestone. Prior to this season starting, I had guessed that he was going to break it against the Knicks, which I think was a week or 2 ago. So I was pretty close on what actually ended up happening. It's hard to know when he sits and rests some nights, injuries happen. It is hard to guess, but I was guessing based on the averages and trying to factor everything in. So that was pretty fun, but I can probably, maybe delete that off my phone now after about 4 years since he has completed beating everyone at it. And I was really emotional watching it, which I knew I would be because I just get emotional about LeBron related things, but it was just such a cool moment. First of all, he's wearing the headband, which you knew in that moment he was going to do it. Headband LeBron is old school LeBron. That's the LeBron everybody remembers from the Cleveland days, and I know he wore it in Miami too, but it feels like the young LeBron is coming back. So in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, this is happening, because he needed 36 points. So everyone's like, oh, is he going to be able to do it? I just think it's funny because if LeBron wants to do something, he's going to do it. He's proven that every single year of his career that's how he operates. So I just think it's funny that suddenly everyone was like, oh, I don't know if it's going to happen. Of course it was. He decided it was going to be that night. He was going to get 36, and he did in the third quarter. So it wasn't even a question at that point. It was cool to have Kareem there. I did feel like it was kind of weird at some moments how they just kept flashing to him repeatedly every time LeBron touched the ball, and the crowd was going wild every time LeBron even got the ball in his hands. But I don't know, it was weird to keep showing Kareem like that. I was almost rubbing it in, hey, your record's going away. But it was nice that he was there. I think that probably meant a lot to LeBron, because I don't think the two of them have necessarily had a great relationship over time. I don't think there's been communication between them, not really anything there, which is interesting because I feel so many similarities between the two of them. But I thought that was really cool of Kareem to be there in that moment. Obviously, this conversation continues to be like the legacy conversation on what this means for LeBron's legacy. And look, in my book, he's already been the GOAT. Like, that already happened, so this didn't change anything for me. It just solidified it even more and is another notch to his belt that you can put in an argument for why he is. It's funny, I was tweeting about this because people are always talking about how Michael Jordan, if he played longer, he would have done it. If he would have not done baseball and kept playing, he would have done it. And I say to that, he didn't. He didn't play longer. He didn't extend his career more, which he was already tailing off at the end there. So I don't think he was going to be playing at an extremely high level at that point. And he did play baseball, which is different physically. Like, I'm not even talking about the reasons he did it. Like, I think, I'm not judging him for that. I'm talking about like what that means for his career. Physically, basketball takes a different toll on you than baseball does. So it's different to go and play that and come back and have this whole new beautiful team there waiting for you, ready to go, which is what happened for him. So we can't do the what ifs because he didn't. LeBron, on the other hand, has played for 20 straight years in the NBA, and part of him doing that is what makes him so great, is the longevity that he's had in this league. And, as much criticism as LeBron gets for some of the moves he's made in his career, mostly the Cleveland to Miami, which, hey, look, I cried myself to sleep that night. Like, that one hurt for sure. Compared to every other star in the present day NBA, LeBron has been the least problematic when it comes to decisions he's made in his basketball career. He has only changed teams when a contract is up. So even when he went to Miami, it's not like he was asking for a trade. His contract was up with the Cavs and he was able to be a free agent and decide where he wanted to go. Same thing with when he went to back to Cleveland after Miami. Same thing when he went to the Lakers. He has never tried to get out of a situation like that. He's always stuck it out till the end. And I think that's a big deal because we've seen, especially in the present day, I mean, look, Kyrie's jumping around, KD's jumping around, everyone's jumping around, Russell Westbrook has jumped. So many people are moving around and not staying in one place that I think it's admirable that he did it in a way that was like, I will fulfill what I promised you to do, which is this contract. I'm not going to force my way out. And then if I want to make the decision at that point, I will. So yeah, like, I think that all goes into the arguments on why what he's done is like so insane and just amazing to watch. I loved that his whole family was there. Like, I'm obsessed with that family. Zuri being there, Savannah, Queen icon, legend was there. It was, his son sitting courtside, just cheering him on. You can tell they're like a really close family, which I think is so awesome. And I know I've talked about, LeBron at length on this podcast before, but the legacy that he has left from being one of the like most well-known people at 16 years old, like full pressure put on to be the next Michael Jordan. Like, that's what people were saying at the time. He was called the chosen one. And he came from a rough upbringing. Look, his mom had a hard go at it. And, when you have a kid, that falls on them as well. And LeBron had a tough childhood. And the fact that he didn't let this fame and a million people probably throwing money at him to want to partner with him on stuff, to want to do X, Y, and Z, that he never let any of that affect him. He put his head down and he worked. He made his best friends his business partners, and that was his circle, and that's the people that he still works with on all of his businesses today. Like, there were pictures of them all together at his party after he broke the record, and it makes me like emotional to see all of them standing there together, because that's the coolest thing ever, that those were his friends when he was 16 and he said, you're coming with me, you're my people, and we're doing this together. And kept his circle tight, wasn't going to let people come in and take advantage of him and screw him over. He didn't have that, and you don't hear a peep about him publicly in negative ways. He's not getting into trouble. He's just playing basketball and posting videos, singing with his kids. Like that is the coolest thing and one of the best parts about his legacy. And then obviously the I Promise school is everything. Like the fact that he not only built a school where he was from, but he knew that that school was going to need so many resources beyond just like, oh, we're going to build you a nice new school and give you new textbooks. Like, because he grew up in that environment, he knows that's not what's going to help those kids, because if your home life is not doing well, then your school life is just gonna follow suit. Like, it doesn't matter how nice the textbooks in the school is if the home life is taking a hit. So providing all those resources that they need to make sure that they're good there so that they can focus and be a kid at school and learn and have fun. And I just think that's the best thing ever. So beyond his basketball career, which, you know, we all know the accolades that he has at this point, I think that's pretty amazing that he's been able to do all of that. So it was fun to stay up. I had a nice glass of red wine. I said this, I think that's what LeBron would want me to be drinking, other than maybe Lobos. I would say he would be cool if I had some Lobos tequila too, but nice glass of red wine. I had my More Than an Athlete crew neck on. I was ready to go, ready to cheer him on. I was tearing up when it happened. So it was a pretty cool night. And I'm just happy to be alive at the same time as him. That's pretty much it. Okay, now for NFL award stuff. So NFL awards were announced, and a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, I went over what my predictions were preseason and then what I thought they were going to be. And I was almost all right with what I thought was actually going to happen. So the ones I was right about: Patrick Mahomes MVP, Coach of the Year Brian Daboll, which that was a competitive Coach of the Year one, man. There were so many coaches that I think could have won that award. It was a good year for coaches. Comeback Player of the Year, Geno, got that right. AP Offensive Player of the Year, Justin Jefferson. And then Rookie of the Year for Offense and Defense, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, both Jets players, which is pretty crazy. Got those right as well. The one I got wrong was Defensive Player of the Year. I said it would be Micah, and it ended up being Nick Bosa, which, you know, makes sense. I think that's definitely a fair one. We had, do we have 2 Buckeyes on the list? Garrett Wilson, Nick Bosa. Always exciting to see. Go Bucks. So yeah, that was good, and I think all well-deserved. Like, there was nothing that was too crazy. They also named the, like, rushing, I forget what the word, ground player of the year, I think is what they call it. That award was renamed for Jim Brown. He was there in the audience. He was looking pretty rough, man. It's kind of sad. But he, you know, obviously had an incredible career. I think it was like 9 seasons. He averaged 100 yards a game or something insane like that. Like, he had an amazing career. So pretty cool to see that renamed after him. And then the other big part of the NFL awards was the Hall of Famers being announced. And, you know, I felt like Joe Thomas was a shoo-in. I felt like that was a lock, that he was going to be in. But I was still kind of nervous up until it was announced, because you just never know. And then he was the first one to walk out on stage and when they were announcing all of the guys. So I was so happy for him. You know, those were dark years in Cleveland where sometimes we didn't win a game. We had a carousel of interesting quarterbacks, some of them a joke, like Johnny Manziel, and you know, Joe Thomas just stayed positive through it all. He wanted to be in Cleveland. He cared about representing the city. He cared about being a Brown, and did it all with a great work ethic. Didn't miss a single game. Like, I feel like it would be easy when you're on a really bad team to be like, I'm not playing this last week, or, you know, taking things easy, take a snap off here and there. But he never did that. He kept playing at a high level. And I feel like now that some time has passed, I feel like we forget how good Joe Thomas was and like what he was able to do. And I think that gets lost with a lot of offensive linemen. Like, I think Joel Bitonio is going to be a Hall of Famer eventually. And I feel like if you ask people on other teams in the NFL right now who aren't like super plugged into everywhere else, they have no idea who that is. Like, offensive linemen just sometimes get lost in the mix. Like, even like defensive line, if you're a pass rusher, like, people know who you are, but offense, it just doesn't really happen as much. So I feel like we lose that. We've probably lost it sometimes with not even realizing how good Bitonio is. And he's had a similar career to Joe Thomas in that, like, he's the guy who never misses a snap, you know, he's the same in that way. And it's a pretty cool thing that we've had, you know, two elite guys like that on our team. So I'm so happy for Joe. It's so well deserved. I think Canton is going to be insane this year. I'm curious to see if the Browns end up playing in the Hall of Fame game, because I feel like that could happen. Just with, you know, they usually pick someone from one of the Hall of Famers to be playing in it. So I could see it happening. And I definitely want to be there. I feel like that'll be fun and a good celebration and a kickoff, hopefully a playoff season for the Browns. Maybe that's what we need. We need the Joe Thomas energy going into next season. So it was really cool. Also, when they show the videos, they're doing it a little differently now. They don't do everyone in the hotel and the knock at the door when David Baker was doing it. Now they've kind of done it a few different ways. Like, there's still a surprise factor to it, but it was kind of different for each guy. It still makes me cry every time. Like, you can feel the weight like coming off their shoulders when they realize they're in. Just all the work they put in, the damage they did to their body, the time they spent away from their family to like accomplish having the careers that they did. And then to see it all, you know, be rewarded, I feel like in that moment, like they all start sobbing, and it's gets me every time. So very, very cool to see. Okay, Super Bowl. So prediction. This is probably one of the hardest ones that has like been to pick in a long time, because I really think these are the two best teams and they're the best for different reasons. I feel like everyone is on the Eagles, and it's because their defense is so good. They have a great offensive line, so many different weapons. They're healthier than the Chiefs. But then for the Chiefs, you have the Patrick Mahomes factor. And it's so hard to deny the Patrick Mahomes factor. And that's why I'm picking the Chiefs. Like, I can't pick against him. And I know he's been banged up a little. I feel like having the 2 weeks here has probably healed him up a ton. So he's probably going to be in a pretty good place. And I know the Chiefs have been banged up a little bit. And they've, you know, struggled with some of their offensive weapons being injured like they were in the last playoff game. I'm not sure who all is going to be back. But I think Patrick is just a guy who can make anything happen. I think they have experience on their side when it comes to Andy Reid, when it comes to Patrick. They've been in these games, and I think that matters a lot, whereas Jalen Hurts hasn't been there yet. Nick Sirianni hasn't been there yet, and I do think that means something, even though on paper I think you would probably pick the Eagles over the Chiefs. I just got to ride with Patrick. He wins games. He makes it happen. I can't pick against him. So bets. I have a couple of bets that I have already placed for the Super Bowl. I'm not telling you how to spend your money. Like, don't put a bunch of money down on these things and then yell at me because they didn't hit. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just letting you know what I am betting. And if you want to, you can, but I'm not telling you that you should. So interestingly, I did put a Chiefs future down as soon as sports betting was legalized in Ohio, because I was just like, yeah, no, that's something that could maybe win me some money. Chiefs future. So hopefully that's maybe that's another reason why I'm picking them to win, because of that future. So I put one down for Mahomes to win Super Bowl MVP, plus 130. I feel like that's pretty good. And if the Chiefs win, I'm assuming that it's because Patrick just like went off and had a great game. Like, that's probably what happened. The only other one I thought about doing on the Chiefs side, which would have been kind of funny, was Chris Jones. Like, what if he had 5 sacks or something crazy? That would be a fun one to maybe pick. But I didn't. I just did one for Patrick. It's usually a quarterback too, so I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. Another one I did that I thought was kind of interesting was plus 175 for Dallas Goedert anytime touchdown. He had a touchdown against the Giants in the playoffs, and I could just see them going to him in the end zone in this game. Maybe it's because there was that Giants one that I feel like everyone had a bet on, and it hit, and it was just like, oh yeah, they were going to throw to a tight end here. That's what was going to happen. So I thought that was a pretty good value pick, so we'll see. And then the last anytime touchdown one I had, Travis Kelce. You just have to do it because Travis has had touchdowns in 7 of the Chiefs' regular season games and also had touchdowns in both of their playoff games so far. He is the other X factor on the Chiefs, other than Patrick, is that, like, doesn't matter how many guys you put on Travis, he's getting open. Like, that's what's going to happen. He will find a way to get open, and Patrick's going to find a way to get the ball to him. So I definitely think that is going to happen in the Super Bowl, regardless of how good the Eagles' defense is. And, you know, got to represent the Cleveland boy in the Super Bowl, so we had to put some money on him for always repping the city of Cleveland. He was tweeting about the Cavs today. Like, it just, I've listened to him and Jason's podcast a couple times. Cleveland comes up like every other sentence, and it's my favorite thing, or something about Northeast Ohio. They were talking about LeBron. They talk about high school all the time, talk about just different things related to Cleveland, and it just makes me so happy. So had to put some money on him as well, but bet safely if you're betting on the Super Bowl. Don't do anything stupid. I never put, this is my personal policy, I'm not betting to try to make a ton of money. I put $5 on any bet I place. I'm not trying to go crazy. So just be smart when you're doing it, because I feel like you can be like, yeah, this thing's definitely gonna hit, there's no doubt about it, and then it doesn't happen and you lose a ton of money. Nobody wants to be that person, so be smart. All right, so that's all I have. Next time I talk to you, we will know who won the Super Bowl, and hopefully the Cavs are continuing on a run, so I have a lot to say there. And we will just roll through until we get to free agency and everything that's going to happen with that. I'm not sure what my recording schedule is going to look like during the off season. I'm going to try to figure it out as we go. Just cause obviously the timing of things is a little bit different now. It's not like we have the games every Sunday anymore. So I feel like, you know, timing will be different just based on what news is coming out and when I will record based on that. So keep your eyes peeled. And the best way to find it is if you subscribe to the podcast. You will know immediately when I do record and post an episode. So that's how you can figure out my recording schedule. Also, just if you would like to, please leave a review or rating, share with a friend, all of that good stuff. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for listening, sticking out this football season with me, sticking out some of the tough weeks of the Cavs. We're here and we have sports, and that's all that really matters. So thanks again, and I hope you guys have a good one.